Hello there! Welcome back to Quest Frontier, where we journey through the forgotten corners of the past, not in search of excitement, but of rest. Tonight we're traveling far north, to a colder world, a rougher world, a world built on salt air, smoky hearths, and long winters, the age of the Vikings. Now, you may think you know the Vikings, the horned helmets, the roaring battles, the dragon-headed ships slicing through the mist, but set those images aside, because tonight we're not chasing legends. Instead, imagine yourself waking up not in your own warm bed, but on a coarse fur blanket inside a smoky wooden longhouse on the edge of a fjord. The air smells of old firewood and fermented fish. Your hands are calloused, your back already sore, because today you are a Viking, not a warrior, not a raider, just an ordinary person trying to make it through an ordinary day. In a time when nothing was ordinary and nothing was easy. Tonight's story will unfold in 4 gentle chapters. First, we'll walk through the rhythm of daily life in a Norse village. The chores, the meals, the challenges of simply surviving. Then, we'll quietly explore the life of a Viking seafarer. One man's quiet ambition and long journeys across cold and unforgiving seas. After that, we'll wander into the mysteries and rituals of Norse culture. Their strange beliefs, its ancient symbols, and the quiet ceremonies that tied them to their world. And finally, we'll peek into the halls of the powerful, the jarls and shield maidens, and the contrast between the lives of the elite and those who served them. But we'll move slowly, softly, never rushing, never stirring the waters too much. So settle in. Let the sound of the fire crackling in your mind keep you company, and prepare to drift through the raw, wind-swept world of the Vikings. Let's begin. Imagine it's still dark. Not the soft darkness of early morning in a city, but a deep, earthy kind of dark. The kind that smells like soil and ash, and sounds like silence. You wake slowly on the floor of a longhouse, a shared building made of timber, turf, and thick wooden beams darkened by years of smoke. It's cold, of course. The hearth fire has burned low overnight, and the cold creeps in through every gap in the wood. Your breath makes little clouds in the air, and your feet ache from yesterday's work, from every day's work. There is no time to linger, because in this world, the sun dictates everything, and you only have so much light. Your first task is to stir the embers and coax the fire back to life. The smoke curls lazily upward, escaping through a hole in the roof. Someone else is already up, probably your mother or your eldest sister, kneading coarse barley dough with stiff fingers. There's no breakfast waiting. Not really. Just a bit of sour milk. Some dried fish from the smokehouse. If you're lucky, a spoonful of lumpy porridge left over from yesterday. You chew slowly, quietly. Because that's how mornings are here. You dress in wool and linen. Not because it's comfortable, but because that's what you have. The tunic is scratchy. The cloak smells faintly of old sweat and sea salt, but it's warm, and warmth is what matters. Outside, the world is pale and quiet. Frost clings to the grass. You can see the sheep in the distance, huddled near a stone wall, their breath rising like steam. Your chores for the day vary. If it's spring, you're tilling the soil with a wooden plow and the help of a stubborn ox. If it's summer, you're fishing or collecting seaweed, or helping patch the roof with fresh turf. If it's winter, you're just trying to stay alive. The tools are simple: The work is repetitive, but that's the rhythm of your life. You carry water in wooden buckets from the well, careful not to spill, because every drop means another walk. You feed the pigs with leftover mash. You mend your own shoes. You sharpen your own blade. Because there is no market down the road, no delivery waiting at your door. It's just you and what you can make or trade. Midday comes. But there's no bell, no break. It's just a short pause to eat whatever you packed. Usually flatbread wrapped in cloth, maybe a chunk of cold meat. You sit on a rock and chew slowly, staring out at the sea, or the forest, or the gray sky that always looks like it's thinking about raining. Conversations are few, mostly practical, sometimes a shared joke, but mostly silence, not uncomfortable silence. Just ordinary. The day winds on, and as the sun lowers, the chores shift again. The animals are herded back in. The firewood is stacked. The youngest are sent to gather kindling or watch for foxes in the henhouse. Inside the longhouse, the smells shift from damp and sour to warm and smoky. Someone stirs a pot of stew. You hear the scrape of metal against the inside of a kettle. Someone laughs softly. A child cries, and the night slowly begins. You eat with your hands, drink weak ale from a wooden cup, and finally curl back under your furs. The fire crackles again. Outside, the wind howls. But inside there is stillness. Just bodies breathing, shadows dancing, and the sound of sleep settling over the village. And that's a single day. But remember, tomorrow it begins again. The same rhythm, same struggles. Because in this world, survival is the only luxury. Now let us drift gently away from the stillness of the village and toward the sea, the North Sea. Cold, gray, restless. It was both a threat and a promise. It stole lives and gave fortunes. And for one man, it was simply the only path he ever knew. His name was not remembered, not in any surviving song, nor carved into any runestone. But imagine him now, a man of perhaps 30 winters, his face worn by wind, his hands like ropes of sinew. Not a hero, not a jarl, it's just a Viking. In the old sense of the word, a traveler, a seafarer, a trader, and sometimes, when needed, a raider. He woke before the light came, always because the tides did not wait. His boat was small, no larger than a city bus by modern standards, but strong, low and sleek, carved with the curling figure of a serpent at the prow. Its planks were riveted together with iron nails, sealed with wool and tar. It groaned when rocked by the waves, like something alive and weary. His crew was made of men like himself, brothers, cousins, neighbors, all with calloused palms and tired jokes. They would launch into the mist without a word. The oars creaked in rhythm. Splash, splash, silence. Sometimes they sailed south, toward the English coast or the Frankish rivers. Sometimes east, down into the winding rivers of what is now Russia. Their cargo varied: furs, amber, walrus, ivory, or slaves. That, too, was part of his world. Uneasy, undeniable, he spoke of it little, thought of it less. But when coin was scarce and the winter stores low, he did what many did. There were days of peace on the sea, and there were days of storm. And on those days, he would lash himself to the mast with rough rope, the spray blinding him, the sky black with fury. But he never turned back. Once, he remembered, They stopped at a place in Ireland, a monastery by a cliff, its bell tower rising like a lonely finger. They didn't come to trade, they came to take. The bells rang once, then fell silent, and when it was done, they returned to the sea, heavy with silver and guilt and silence. But those days were rare. Most voyages were simpler, colder, longer. He would barter salt cod for grain, iron tools for spices. He once traded a carved comb, bone white and delicate, for a spool of fine silk. And yet, no matter how far he sailed, he always came home, to the same inlet, the same longhouse. His wife would be waiting, the children taller. There would be new thatch on the roof, or none at all. And always the same smell of ash, salt, and old wood. He never thought of himself as brave. He feared illness, not war. He feared bad harvests, not swords. Yes. Greatest pride was not in what he conquered, but in what he returned with. Fish, tools, stories. In the evenings, he would sit by the hearth and whittle bits of wood into shapes. Little ships, little beasts. He laughed when others boasted. But if you watched his hands, you would know he had seen much. He had survived much. And one day, when his oars were too heavy, he stayed home, taught his sons how to mend sails, taught his daughters how to barter with strangers, told them not to fear the sea, but never to trust it. Oh, great battle, no saga, just a slipping away like mist off the shore. His life was the backbone of that age, thread in the great woven cloth of Viking history. Not the bright threads, but the ones that hold everything together. Let the wind settle now, let the sails fall still. We step away from the salt-stained boats and into something quieter, something older. A world made not of oars and axes, but of runes, whispers, and shadows. In the Viking world, belief was not a matter of doctrine, it was a rhythm, woven into every step, every breath, every pause to look at the sky. There were gods, yes, many, and loud ones. Odin the Wanderer, with his one gray eye and cloak like a storm cloud. Thor thundering through the heavens with a hammer that cracked the sky. Freya, riding her chariot of cats, watching over love and war alike. But belief was not always about the gods. More often, it was about the signs, the hints, the quiet marks of fate. A raven on the fence post at sunrise, a dream of the sea flooding through your home, the way a candle flickered when no wind was there. These things were not ignored, they were messages. And so, to live as a Viking meant watching, listening, respecting what could not be explained. There were runes, lines carved into wood, bone, and stone. Not just letters, but symbols of power, protection, calling. You might carve them into the prow of your ship before a journey, or into the handle of your axe, or quietly into the inside of your doorframe to keep harm away. And then there were the rituals. Imagine a midwinter night, dark as pitch, the snow piled high outside. Inside the longhouse, all lamps are lit, flickering yellow and orange. A carved goat's skull sits in the center of the room, draped in ivy. It is the night of Yule, a night to honor the dead and beg for the return of the sun. Everyone gathers. Bread is broken, meat is poured, the first sip always for the gods. Stories are told, not loudly, but with slow reverence. The kind of stories that feel older than language itself. And outside, the wind howls like something watching. listening, waiting. There were more solemn rites, too. When someone died, their body might be burned on a pyre or in a boat set alight and pushed into the fjord. But not always. Many were buried, curled like sleepers, with tools and beads and weapons laid beside them, a comb, a knife, a small carved horse. Even in death, a Viking was never sent away empty-handed. Archaeologists today still find these graves, in frozen soil, under farmhouses, beneath forgotten mounds. They find fragments of the past, beads of amber, blades of iron, bones shaped by hard lives, and always mystery. Who were they? Why this item? Why this pose? What did the symbols mean? We will never fully know. Because Viking belief wasn't written down, it was spoken, felt, and when those people passed, many of their truths passed with them. Still, we try to imagine, to piece together the meanings of their world. We study the sagas, passed down centuries later, full of riddles and echoes. We listen to the names carved on runestones. We walk barefoot in the foggy forests of Scandinavia, wondering what stood there once. A shrine? A stone circle? A gathering of silent faces, watching the stars? And somewhere in that fog, the old world lingers, not with clarity, but with weight. You can feel it in the symbols, in the rhythm of their rituals, in the way they lived, in the way they honored the unknown. Now we move again, not through time, but through walls. From the smoky longhouse of the farmer to the carved halls of the powerful, from rough wool tunics to cloaks trimmed with fur dyed with imported pigments, clasped with silver pins. From the simple rhythm of survival to the complex dance of power. Viking society was not flat. Though the land was shared, the sea opened all. There were clear lines drawn between those who led and those who served. At the top stood the jarls, lords in function, if not always in title. They owned many fields, commanded ships, held the favor of warriors and the envy of their neighbors. Their halls were larger, their fires warmer, their feasts longer. Imagine now the interior of one such hall. A great rectangular chamber framed with oak beams, carved with serpents and knots. Torches burn in sconces along the walls, casting long flickers of gold. At the center, a long table of heavy timber, laid with salted meat, roasted fowl, wheels of cheese, and jugs of honeyed mead. The jarl sits at the head. His beard is combed and bound with beads. His arm ring, solid silver, catches the firelight. He speaks little. He doesn't need to. Around him are his herdmen, loyal warriors sworn to his side. And further down the hall, the skald or poet prepares to rise. His voice is the memory of this world. He tells not just of battles, but of lineages, debts owed, of promises made in fire and ash. And then, quieter still, at the very edge of this world were the thralls. The enslaved. They did not eat at the table. They served it. They poured the mead, stoked the fires, mended the walls, tended the animals. Many were taken from foreign shores, Irish, Slavic, Anglo-Saxon, captives, sold in markets, or seized in raids. They lived on the edges of the settlements, in smaller structures. They owned nothing. They could be traded, but they were not forgotten. Even in the laws, which favored freeman thralls, were named, protected in part, punished more severely. Some might eventually earn or be granted freedom. Others were born and died as shadows. At their labor was the silent force that kept Viking society running. Even within the free class, there were layers. Landowners, craftsmen, wanderers. Women, too, had varying roles. A farmer's wife might till and milk, grind grain, and cure fish, her hands never still. But a noble woman, she might oversee dozens. She might carry keys at her waist, a symbol of control over household stores, wealth, and legacy. And once in a while, a woman picked up a sword. Shield maidens, not common, not fantasy, but remembered. Named in sagas, feared in battle, whether legend or truth. Their presence shaped the imagination of the time. Feasts were times of display, of power. It's power of generosity, or the performance of it. A jarl might give out rings of silver to his warriors. He might call for music, a duel, a recitation of ancestry, all meant to assert place and to remind those who watched where they stood. But power in this world was not permanent. A jarl could fall, a farm could rise, ships could be lost at sea, cattle could perish in winter. Honor was delicate, reputation everything. And so, even in the warmth of the high seat was a chill, a knowledge that everything could change. It's with the wrong word, the wrong storm, the wrong look from a rival. And now, slowly, we draw the long hall's door close behind us, leaving behind its warmth, its pride, and its quiet unease. Only one step remains. And now, we leave the Viking world behind. Its hard soil, its smoky halls, its gods and ghosts and quiet burdens. We've walked through the cold rhythm of a village morning. We've sailed with a nameless man across gray, endless waters. We've listened to stories whispered beneath torchlight, where myth and memory blurred. We've stepped for just a moment into the halls of those who ruled and those who served. All of it, a single thread in a long and tangled tapestry. History often feels loud. We picture swords and fire and shouting. But more often, it was quiet. Endless work. Tiny decisions. Moments of stillness that no one bothered to write down. That's where the real stories live. Not just in kings and battles, but in tired feet, in shared bread. In hands that pulled fishing nets from icy water. In the quiet dignity of surviving one more winter. You wouldn't last a day as a Viking, they say. And maybe that's true. Not because of the battles, but because of the silence. The wait. The way each day asked everything of you, and still came again the next morning. But tonight, you don't have to endure. You don't need to rise before the sun or gather firewood with frostbitten hands. You can simply rest, safe in a world where the roof doesn't leak, where the sea is far away, and where no raven waits outside your door. So breathe. Let the stories fade now. Let the cold longhouse melt back into your imagination. The mead cool. The oars fall still. The runes go unread. Warm now. Warm. Quiet. And very far from the edge of that dark sea. Good night, traveler. Sleep well.